All right, Nick, let's talk about the Los Angeles Chargers as this, let's call it the first phase of free agency, has settled down. We've seen a lot of moving and shaking, a lot of deals be done. And the Chargers, they've done a lot of really good stuff. And everyone knows the big moves that they made, the re-signings, the additions, the guys that they kept. But I think some of these more under the radar moves show a sign the Chargers have done some really smart things. And I've got some breakdowns on that. I think Chargers fans are going to really love of the smart moves the Chargers have made this free agency period. But before we dive into that, I'm Andrew, that's Nick, and this is Saturday Morning Inspection. All right, Nick, as I alluded to, the Chargers, really great active free agency period here. A lot of players retained. They signed a good amount of players as well. As Chargers fans, you like to see movement, like to see things going on. So first, let's take a look at what they have done. On the right, you can see they retain Elijah Molden, Troy Dye, Khalil Mack obviously is a big one, Bradley Bozeman, Hunter J.K. Scott, T.R. Tart, and Jalen Reagor. On the other hand, they signed Mekhi Becton, Dante Jackson, Mike Williams coming back, Najee Harris, Benjamin St-Juste, Naquan Jones, Deshaun Hand, and Delshon Phillips. I think these were all great moves as well. Everyone knows the big ones, like Mike Williams coming back, that's a big one. Najee Harris, we did a video on that if you want to go check it out. That was a really great move for them as well. We compared him to some other running backs. But some of these smaller guys on here, you might not think it, but they really added some benefit to this Chargers team in a big way. And let me pull up my first graph, and only graph really, that I have here. And this is showing the Chargers what their weaknesses were in 2024 and where they signed these players and how they explicitly helped them correct a weakness. So first off, the Chargers, what their weaknesses were this past season. If you look at their PFF grades, run blocking was a big weakness. Tackling was a really big weakness. And then pass blocking, it was kind of lower, but it wasn't necessarily super low, but there's a good correction there as well. So we see first, run blocking, 61.6. Of course, the big addition, Mekhi Becton, talked about his size. This guy's huge. Coming out here, he has a great run blocking grade as well. 2024, he had a 70.3 run blocking grade. That is a value addition of 8.7 points in PFF grade that Mekhi Becton brings to a weakness of this Los Angeles Chargers team. Now, the big one is tackling. That was awfully low, and it's something that was a weak point for the Chargers last year. 49.9 tackling grade. You look at Naquan Jones. A lot of people are like, who even is that guy? But it doesn't matter. He's a defensive lineman who brings a great tackling grade to the table. 65.8, a 15.9 addition in value to the PFF grade, helping raise that number up, getting them kind of like a money ball approach, getting them to the mean. Then you look at corner, Benjamin St-Juste, same thing here. 67 tackling grade with him, a 17.1 addition over where they were at that 49.9 mark for tackling. And then finally, the most recent one, I think this was a great move and is a great value as well. Tyler Conklin, the tight end, coming over here. This guy, the Chargers, 71.6 pass blocking grade, not bad. But Tyler Conklin, a 78.8 pass blocking grade, brings that already good number up 7.2 points. So he really adds a lot of value to the table here for the Los Angeles Chargers. I think these were great moves. These are under the radar moves by the Chargers. They bring so much value that people are not seeing. I think this is how good franchises do it, and the Chargers are definitely one of those teams. Nick, that's enough for me kind of breaking down what I see out of the Chargers. Curious what your thoughts are, but before we get to you Chargers fans, in the comment section below, as we've broken down the whole off season so far up to this point, free agency kind of has slowed down. We've seen a lot of the big moves. Let us know. What was your favorite move of this free agency period for the Chargers? Was it someone they brought back? Was it somebody they retained? Was it a new face on this team that you think is going to bring a lot of value? Let us know your thoughts on everything in the comment section below. But nonetheless, Nick, what are your thoughts on these latest moves by the Chargers?
Yeah, I think it's absolutely outstanding. And look, this is what championship front offices do. And this is why you bring in a guy like Ortiz coming from a great organization like the Baltimore Ravens. We always think of teams that win titles that it's all about building stars, right? You just need to collect the best talent. If you have just the most top five picks, or you dole out tens or if not hundreds of millions of dollars in contracts, you can build just a great team. You can win titles. But the data actually points in a different direction. To win a championship, you basically need three things. You need a good coach, a really good quarterback, and then no weaknesses around the entire roster, right? The Chiefs are just incredible proof of this, right? They obviously have the right coach and a great quarterback, and they have a couple really star players, but even their stars, like Kelsey, for example, his production is overall just in terms of talent as he's gotten older has dropped significantly. So how are they so good? How do they win so many games? Because if you look at their roster, they have so few weaknesses, or their weaknesses are just minor compared to other teams' weaknesses, that it's really hard for teams to beat them. It's hard for them to lose. And if you have good coaching and good quarterback, you can win all those close games. That's what the Chiefs have done. The Philadelphia Eagles are very, very similar. If you look at their roster as a whole, they don't have, I mean, they got a lot of really good players. Jalen Hurts, you can make an argument he's not a top eight quarterback, right? Their two star wide receivers are great, but you can make an argument neither of them are top five or top six. If you look at their front four, it's outstanding, but is there a guy there that's first team all pro? Right. So again, you can go this way through their entire roster and you can go, maybe at tackle, they're really, really good. They may be at the top of the NFL, but there's a lot of great tackles in the National Football League. So the reality is the key for winning a title, to building that team, is to eliminate and reduce and mitigate weaknesses. And the corollary to that is to do it in a cost-effective manner, which was what the Los Angeles Chargers did here. None of these deals break the bank. We're talking like 2.5 million for St. Juice, right? We're talking, low single to mid single digits on these contracts. So you're not breaking the bank, you're not mortgaging the future, but you're removing the weaknesses around these teams, and you're doing it in a pretty significant manner. For those of you who aren't familiar with PFF, right, an 8 to 15, 17 point, whatever some of those 7.2 in Conklin's case, whatever those bumps were, those are significant, right? Because a bump of about 10 points in PFF is basically the difference between a replacement level starter and a high quality starter, or the difference between a high quality starter and an all pro player, or the difference between an all pro player and like a Hall of Fame kind of player, right? 8 to 10 to 12 to 15 points, that's a significant jump. So getting those jumps in those positions, so taking things that were weaknesses on the roster, you go from being a weakness to being a little bit above average. And folks, that can be the entire difference between making the playoffs and making a deep playoff run, especially when you have the first 2 points I mentioned nailed down in coach and quarterback. And when you go down some of these guys here, it is clear that they're addressing ways that fit perfectly with the Chargers. I look specifically at Becton and the Tyler Conklin deals. Becton, of course, is a mauler. Everyone understands why he's such a great fit for the Chargers. Help solve the guard position. He's going to do wonderful things in the run blocking game. That's a guaranteed. But when you look at a guy like Conklin, a lot of people are like, what kind of deal is that? I mean, it's not really a big headline grabbing deal. Remember, the Chargers, under their offensive structure with Roman, they want to have multiple tight ends. They want to do play action. What does that mean? It means tight ends do a lot of pass protecting. They do a lot of chipping at the very least, or they do a lot of one-on-one pass pro against quality pass rushers. So in order for that offense to work, you need tight ends who are able to pass block. So this isn't just these moves here, they aren't just mitigating weaknesses and doing them at a great price. They're also great fits too. So this is just an all-around incredible job by the Chargers front office. Again, a lot of the other teams have had really phenomenal headline making off seasons, and the Chargers have made some headlines too. But so far, this is just really good fundamental execution by the Chargers. Last offseason, it was the big things. It was Harbaugh, it was Ortiz, it was reorienting this franchise in the right direction. This season, their last season was a chainsaw. This season, it's a scalpel. They're fine tuning, getting things heading in the right direction, mitigating weaknesses, focusing on great fits. This is what championship teams do. Obviously, it doesn't guarantee a title for the Los Angeles Chargers, but the first time in a long time, we're going to see a great marriage of front office strategy, coaching, and talent on the field. And when those things come together, special things can happen.
Yeah, and again, to go on your point about teams like the Kansas City Chiefs not having weaknesses and things like that. If you look across the board on their PFF grades last year, they are very solid. Their lowest grade is a 68.6. That's the lowest grade here. And we said, that's not too bad. You're almost in the 70s there. That's a team did very well this season. Obviously got to the Super Bowl, so really a great model to balance out those weaknesses. Some other teams that match that, Baltimore, their lowest score a 62.3, and that was on special teams. They had some issues last year on special teams, but still 62.3 ain't too bad. And finally, another team might be a little bit surprising, but they did very well in the regular season. That's the Minnesota Vikings. Their lowest grade, 64.2. So across the board, some of these teams that are doing really good stuff, whether it's regular season, whether it's postseason, you see the trend is no weaknesses across the board. It's a very balanced team. They have a lot of great stuff going on. So to your point, I think the Chargers, they're heading in that direction. And, I really love what's going on here. I think this is going to be good. And like you said, I think some of these moves, they're like, how useful is it going to be? But if you break it down, it's going to be big. Like Tyler Conklin's one I hit on. I think that you hit on too. And I think it's a great move. I think this is going to be like the best 1 year, $3 million deal that we have ever seen because of what Greg Roman did. The best Ravens iteration I saw was when they did so well, when they went 14-2, their number one seed in the AFC. They had three tight ends. They had Mark Andrews, they had Nick Boyle, and they had Hayden Hurst. I think that Conklin is that, Nick Boyle type of tight end. He's really big, solid guy, great at blocking, brings a lot to the table in that regard. So I think we're going to see a lot of heavy packages out there. We're going to see a lot of really interesting stuff, but it was very successful and it did really, really well. So I think some of these moves, while under the radar, not huge headline grabbers, I think you need to dig into the numbers and see what they bring to the table because that's the theme here. All of these moves are bringing something to the table. None of these are just, oh, that's just a depth signing. That's just a body for a practice squad. No, all of these guys have potential to bring something to this team and help out a weakness. And I think that's what the good teams are doing nowadays.
Yeah, and it's important to understand, and I love using the Philadelphia Eagles example because they had a lot of really good ones last year, is that sometimes these small signings that don't make any noise end up having the biggest impact because it saves so much cap space if you get a lot of value out of these cheap players. The Eagles with Zach Baum, the linebacker they brought in, great examples, like a $3, $4, $5 million deal, 1 year thing like that, and he was a finalist for an NFL Defensive Player of the Year, right? Getting those kind of deals, that's what makes you a title team. The Chiefs did this for a long time. The Patriots have, during their title run, followed this exact same model. It's really hard to do, obviously, but if you're able to do it well, and based on the data, it looks like the Chargers did a really nice job this offseason, it can very quickly elevate your team between a playoff team, a 9, 10, 11 win team, to a Super Bowl contender, again, especially if you have quarterback and coach locked down. This is the next phase of the Chargers' development of this new era of the Los Angeles Chargers. You brought in Harbaugh, you brought in Ortiz to turn the program around. It was obviously heading in a disastrous situation with Staley. Now things are going in the right direction, but they have to capitalize on that momentum, and they're doing a great job executing on the strategy. A lot of moves left to make, still some free agency to go, of course, the draft beyond that, but I think so far so good for the Los Angeles Chargers as they look to take that next step in 2025.